Hello, after a short break, now we are at the fourth session, which is called Fact and Myths about the Circular Economy. And this session will start from Dina Epifanova, Sustainability Transformation Manager at Tetra Pak. Dina will talk about circular economy and innovation journey. And Tetra Pak is also a partner and great supporter of the circular economy and also of Circular Week and Mazovia Circular Congress. So thank you very much for your support. And later on, we will listen to the four other presentation, which will be presented by pan Sharon, CEO Claritera, panią Anę Sapotę, wiceprezydent Governmental Affairs Tomra System, pana Leszka Kąska z ING Bank oraz panią dr Annę Kozerę-Szałkowską z PlasticsEurope. So now the floor I pass to Dina. Please show us your presentation.
Everybody, nice meeting you. Yes, I'm Dina Epifanova, a Sustainability Transformation Manager in Tetra Pak. I would like to shortly update you on how circular economy concept is applied in practice in packaging industry, specifically in our case, beverage cartons and Tetra Pak company innovation journey to fit circular economy. And I will start shortly with a small consumer perspective. I don't know if you feel it or not, but we are watching attentively at the researchers, and now we see there's a big trend not only among experts and opinion leaders, but today consumers are also a lot into sustainability, and they are ready to be partners of the journey, which is great news and big supporters. How do we see it in Tetra Pak and in beverage cartons industry? First of all, there are some myths around our packaging, and I would like to comment here. First of all, our packaging is not waste at all, and I will tell you in a minute why. It's a valuable resource, and it needs just to be treated in that way, and this is why. First of all, sorry, the buttons are playing a bit. First of all, consumers and all of us and all the participants of the value chain are to be aware that Tetra Pak cartons are recyclable, and in Poland they are to go to the yellow bin together with other lightweight packaging, and this ensures that a pack reaches recycling sites. And here I would like also to share the recent picture of how it goes in Europe and globally as well. Sorry, it's, buttons are a bit tricky. So some time ago, in the year 2010, there were 40 recyclers all over the world, but after that, during the past 10 years, we have been making a big effort together with other partners and together with all the interested parties of the value chain. And today you see the number of recyclers globally is almost 200, and quite a feasible amount of money has been invested, and even more to be ahead. When we look at the Poland map, hope my slides are moving as I'm clicking. When you look at the Poland map, since then, during these last 4 years, with the help of our company and other partners, 4 sites that are now recycling used beverage cartons have been launched. So you see the names, you see the map, and what is even more interesting, then if you look at the blue diagram here, this is how beverage cartons have been recycled in EU. And as you see today, almost every second beverage carton that is put on the market in European Union is recycled. In Poland, it has started later in general, but the dynamics is very positive. As you see, We are at a very good level today, and at a level with other materials that you know very well. And it is not the end of the journey, it's the beginning of the journey, and we have big and ambitious plans to develop that further. Let me show you how we see the future. But before that, just some fresh pictures from a Polish recycling site. Our classical recycling pathway, when separated layers of paper are recycled into usual standard waste paper materials, and polyol, the other parts, are recycled into granular. And sorry, I have an issue with clicking, but still. And what do we see as a journey ahead? Innovation journey with circular economy in mind, first of all. There is another perspective which we focus a lot. We want our pack to be fully renewable, and we are lucky here because it is mainly cotton already, and renewable is part of circular economy concept as described by Ellen MacArthur Foundation, as most of you I'm sure know very well. Another part is anti-littering solutions, which is in our case about launching paper straws, and also about launching innovative solutions for caps that are not tethered caps that follow the pack down to the recycling sites and don't become a litter anymore. Another perspective, which is also very important, is recycled content in our packaging, and we commit to introduce up to 10% of recycled content in our packaging by the year 2025 in Europe, and also working a lot on enabling recycling by design. Now I have to be a little bit faster to be in time, but you are very welcome to contact me afterwards and I will answer all your questions. So paper straws, where we would like to also mention that we are now launching the first test, and it is happening in Poland, the first test in Europe, and it will be deployed even more actively in the nearest future. What I would also like to mention here, I'm now scrolling a bit down to be in time, that it's not only Tetra Pak now moving that direction, followed by consumers' preference. If you look at Europe in the whole, different broad industry examples are there when even unexpected categories are moving towards carton solutions. But sorry. But what is more interesting, that we are now moving towards a fully renewable pack, as I said, and we are launching plant-based polymers in our packs. As you know, we have lamination, we have caps in our pack, and now we want to shift from fossil fuels here to renewable resources, which is sugarcane. And here you can see very good and interesting examples of the launches that are local Poland launches. These are the brands that are already using Tetra Pak packages with plant-based polymers. So in short, today we are here, so we are using renewable resources, and this is in our focus. We are making a lot of steps to lower carbon footprint of our packs and our other solutions and services and equipment. We are working strongly on making our packs even more recyclable and to be recycled at a higher and higher level than today. And this is our journey ahead in short. At the end of the journey, we want, first of all, to substitute aluminum foil parts with, again, renewable barrier layer. And also we want to go for fewer materials in our packs, maximizing to a high level, first of all, the fiber content in our pack. And this is my last slide. This is our vision. The future carton package as we see it is to be either from renewable or recycled packaging materials, 100% recyclable and fitting low carbon circular economy, without, of course, ever compromising food safety requirements is our first focus always. So thank you very much. This is in short the journey that we are after. And please give me a shout if you have any questions, and these are my contacts. Thanks a lot.
Hi, everybody. So it's a great pleasure to talk to you about some of the facts and myths in the circular economy. The notion I would like to put with you, to lay with you, is that plastic or plastic waste is not only bad, always bad. And the other stuff is that circular is not always to go back to the same point that we start with. So let me share with you some elements, and I hope I'll manage to handle the controls. So can you see me? Okay. So have you ever wondered if plastic at the end, is it the end of life of plastic, or when we treat plastic, or when we handle plastic as a mechanical recycling, plastic to plastic, or chemical recycling, do we really end the life of plastic? And other possibilities of ending the life of plastic, and one of the issues is, yes, we are able to do so. The other stuff is missing here. I simply cannot see well. Do you know that can we handle all the plastics in the world? And the answer is no. We can handle some of the plastics, and the key is how do we collect it, how do we treat it, how do we handle it in a proper manner. Okay. So what can you do with plastics, and what are the various elements that plastics allows you to handle, and can we resolve this, what we call the global pandemic? So there are various issues, and let me share with you some of the things that we are doing at Clariter, because it's very important to mention that what we do is we simply take post-consumer plastic waste that no one wants, and we turn it into products that everybody needs. Okay. So why are we unique? So I don't know if you know, but plastic comes from crude, and what we do in a chemical process, in a chemical upcycling process, we turn it to the base of hydrocarbons of plastics, and thereafter we are doing various processes that at the end bring us to families of products that are pure, that are top of the lines, and are not used for energy, and are not used for plastic recycling. The global challenges that we have today range from the pandemic of plastic waste. We see also a problem with the volatility of oil and dependency on crude. We have issues with small, medium-sized enterprises. We have with packaging. We have issues with industries. So the global challenges, can handling one solution, or can handling one challenge resolve the other challenges as well? And we believe we can. Let's see what goes. Okay, so Clariter unique process takes, in principle, majority of plastic has said about 60% of existing plastics, which is PE, PP, and polysterenes. What we do, first we take the plastic and we crack it and we turn it to the hydrocarbon chain, meaning we make it something similar to crude. Thereafter, we hydrotreat it in order to take all the impurities out. And at the end, we distillate it. So we have three families of product that are pure. We have oil family, solvents family, and wax family. Okay, let's see if it moves. Okay. So our products are coming without smell, without colors. I hope you can see here. But for example, our products are see-through. And what you can do with these three families of products, you can make more than 1,000 applications that each and every one of us use in our daily activity. Now, we are not making these end products, but we allow the producers of existing today to use these end products. And this is why we also believe that in a circular economy, industry is not always bad, but you can actually create a good industry handling their packaging and putting it back into a product. Again, more than 1,000 applications. The chemical recycling, the world needs more solutions. So Clariter is one of the solutions, but there are so many ways of how to handle. I need to explain to you a little bit what do we mean by that. So we all know that so far, plastic was mainly used in mechanical recycling. But thereafter came the world of chemical recycling, where in chemical recycling you can see plastic to fuel or plastic to energy. In an upper level, you could see plastic to plastic or plastic to new plastic. And then comes Clariter, and what we do actually is we are making upcycling, because we take plastic and we turn it into products of a higher value, of an advanced value. Products that if from other, usually what comes, they comes from crude and crude derivative. As a result of this, what we are able to do, we are able to solve more than one problem, not just the plastic waste problem, but we are able also to solve the problem of dependency of crude and petrochemicals. So, as I said, we put together innovation, we challenge, we look at the way of how to approach a problem not from a single point, but from a multi-point, and how by solving the problem, we are not just handling one issue, but we're handling multiplier of issues. So our journey started actually in Poland, which is funny enough, about 18 years ago. We have today close to 100 people in our company. We speak 24 languages and we have 40 nationalities. We are spread today between South Africa, Israel, Poland, and the Netherlands. And this is where is our targets. We love to hire people that are young and old. And one of the unique stuff that we have a gender parity of 1-to-1. That in both the petrochemical world and in the plastic world, or even the waste world, you cannot see this gender parity. And it's all started with the same concept. How can you take something where there is no value and turn it into something there is value? So for us, plastics looks like, or plastic waste is something without value. And we look at this, how we can turn it into a great value, such great waxes, great solvents, and great oils. Think about what do you do when you go to IKEA, for example, and at the end you take your plastic packaging and you throw it away. Think about that plastic packaging turns into Clariter, and over there we make waxes that at the end someone else buys at IKEA. So you can actually take the same plastic that comes from IKEA and return it into a candle that is later on sold in IKEA. Okay. So, more than happy to share with you what we do. Please go and reach out. And if you're ever in Gliwice, south of Poland, or in East London, South Africa, come and see our facilities. It's more than amazing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm here today. I have a pleasure to discuss with you and show you the presentation on packaging in circular economy. I would like to discuss a bit about consumers and their readiness to change in terms of circularity of the packaging and to change their habits, to adjust it to the maybe requirements of circularity. But first of all, I would like to introduce myself and my company. I'm Anna Sapota and I represent Tomra. Tomra is a company founded in 1972, and we began with designing, manufacturing and selling reverse vending machines for deposit systems. And today Tomra creates sensor-based solutions for optimal resource productivity. We believe that we can lead the change in terms of resource revolution we are facing now. So, just as a bit of background, we live in an age with the highest level of consumption our planet has ever seen. Using more resources than ever before, more than our planet definitely can continue to sustain. And a number of these resources are used only once before being simply dumped and considered as waste. The example, of course, can be average beverage packaging, which in worst case scenario can be used for less than 1 minute and then becomes simply a waste. So the example of plastic bottle, there is 1 million of plastic bottles which are bought around the world every minute. Less than half of it will be collected for recycling. Tomra, we capture 40 billion beverage containers every year in our collection systems. And it represents only 2.5% of the beverage containers sold on a yearly basis. So the question is, what should be changed? What can change that these numbers are maybe better? And of course, it tackles, because if we talk about beverage containers, it tackles, of course, the behaviors of the consumers. And we now in a coronavirus situation also, it was interesting for us to see how the approach toward packaging, plastic packaging, is perceived by the consumer. So we ordered a Kantar survey, which were conducted in 4 countries, UK, Germany, Norway, France, and there was over 4,000 respondents asked about the resources and habits. And at the same time, in Poland, there was done an IBRIS survey, during which they asked over 1,000 people about the waste and packaging. And I would like to share with you a bit the results of this survey and maybe try a bit to guess how they can be interpreted. So 63% of German respondents stated that they have not changed their personal consumption of resources during the corona crisis. But only 36% of UK respondents confirm the same. So the outcome is that the consumption habits were changed a bit, but were also changed depending on the countries and how much the corona probably hit. When we ask about what they were resigning of, they were resigning mainly from clothing, traveling, out-of-home dining, and all 3 of these things seems to be quite obvious. But what is also interesting, 23% of cases where the respondents resigned from additional purchase were groceries. So if we talk about groceries, it's interesting to think that in coronavirus situation, the packaging become more important, plastic packaging. So we ask about this, how in COVID situation we perceive the necessity of having more or less the same amounts of plastics. And the general answer was that 85% of people believe that this is the time to rethink how to handle disposable packaging. More than half of the respondents thinks that groceries should be packed in less plastic than they are packed now, even taking into account the situation, pandemic situation. In Poland, this statement was supported by 96% of the respondents. And at the same time, 95% of the respondents said in Poland that in general we have too much packaging on products. But almost, and this is important and interesting, half of us people are not prepared to pay more money so we can pack our products in more sustainable way. So there is the declaration, there is the will to change the habits, there is maybe the will or requirement to change the packaging, but the consumer is not ready to participate in cost of it. But 94% of people said that recycling will become more important in the future, or at least they will not lose its importance. So, summing up a bit, we have 2 conclusions. Conscious consumption, consumers start to think, and even in times of pandemic, they think about the habits, about the packaging, about the sustainability of the packaging, and how it will be treated later on. They believe that there is a necessity for a change. And they believe that recycling may be one of the answers. So this is the 2 parts which can help in making packaging a bit more sustainable, a bit more circular. It's to first it's first to a bit influence the consciousness, to learn, to educate the consumer how the things can be changed, and then to develop the possibilities for recycling, to reuse and re-employ the resources we have there. So rethink, resource, recycle. And at the end, Tomra, as our pledge, we said that we will collect and recycle 40% of the post-consumer plastic packaging worldwide by 2030. And this is what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much.
Okay, good afternoon. I think I have a big challenge because it's Friday afternoon and well, I guess you had your coffee already. So I will try to attract your attention for 10 minutes. And I'd like to tell you that after my presentation, there's another more interesting one to be made by Mrs. Anna. So please wait for it. Wait at least this 10 minutes. Okay, we prepared a report called 8 Myths on Circular Economy. There is no magic related to this number of 8. Yeah? Probably we could count much more, or maybe we could even consolidate some of them. But okay, definitely, the discussion about various issues, including circularity, recently is dominated by the pandemic. So we ask ourselves whether this agenda is still valid during pandemic times. So partly the response was no, because there are so many more important issues. But on the other hand, consumers, and Mrs. Anna just told you that the consumers still are very concerned about that and want to change. At the same time, during the pandemic, there is a need or expectation for a large policy intervention or for some fiscal measures, including public spending, maybe new regulations. So this opens space for green stimulus or circular stimulus. So during this time, the pandemic, we can think about the agenda even being accelerated by policymakers or changing consumptions or production patterns. I will go through all these myths which are in our report. It can be, if you Google 8 myths ING, you will get a longer copy. The copy of this report is publicly available. I think a major source behind this analysis is again a consumer survey, or more like consumer research, which we conducted in several countries where ING is present, so including Europe, Australia, the States, but most of the results refer to the European countries. And naturally, what's probably interesting for the Polish audience, you can see how Poland performs vis-à-vis other countries. So, well, myth number one, the circular economy is a fashion, will be over soon. So we say, I think, provided evidence that first consumers care about that. So they see, the polls see that environmental issues are pressing problems. And among these problems, actually in Poland, it was quite unusual to see that the polls saw the plastic pollution as number one environmental issue before global warming. This can be partly explained by the timing of this survey. It was conducted when during the very heated debate on circular single-use plastics, in the ban of single-use plastics in Europe. There are, well, besides consumers, there are policymakers very active on this agenda. I think there were some sessions about European regulations which will be, in general, strengthened, and they will be expanded and strengthened. After the directive on single-use plastics, there's a forthcoming the directive on microplastics, extended producer responsibility, right to repair, etc., etc. So this agenda will not disappear. And also, well, from the business perspective, it makes also, well, if the consumers will change behaviors, and they are somehow sensitive about companies being eco-friendly, then they will become also demanding more demanding when they make their purchasing decisions. The myth number 2, this circularity requires a lot of effort, extra costs, so overall it does not pay off. No, there is a number of potential benefits associated with circular economy. And besides these monetary ones, there are also some which are difficult to measure, non-monetary. But using some methods, it can be there is a benefit of clean environment. It can be proved. Also, one of the questions we asked during the survey was, I think, quite relevant during the pandemic, but it was done, as I said, before the pandemic, the survey. So to the question whether you would sacrifice growth in order to achieve sustainability or in a better environment, surprisingly, majority, or in many countries, majority of, in Poland, almost 60%, almost 60% respondents said yes. So they were ready to sacrifice growth against environmental benefits. Myth number 3, we discussed, Susanna mentioned about recycling in packaging. So I think frequently this discussion is dominated by discussions about circularity. We are, I think, too much focused on recycling, but we know that besides that there is also, well, this famous triple R, is also about reducing waste, making more efficient use of the resources we have, like energy, water. It's also about reuse, so using several times, for multiple times, and of course it's also about recycling. The debate about plastics, we thought there's a myth saying that there are supporters of circular economy postulate absolute elimination of plastic, so no plastic tomorrow anymore. But look at me, I'm sitting on plastic. I'm keeping this thing to change my slides, which is made of plastic. I learned from the previous sessions that there are so many, several tens of plastics kinds. So not every plastic is bad. It's not every plastic is, lands on the land leaf. The problem is definitely about single-use plastics. This is redundant. In many cases, we can live without that. But if we think about not using plastics, we should take into account consider alternatives, which are not so good in every respect. Even if you take into account paper, aluminium, or glass, there are pros and cons. The problem with plastic, naturally, is the recycling rate, but it probably was so many times mentioned during this conference that I will not spend too much time on that. our respondents said there are many possible ways to reduce the plastic reliance, and actually almost half of the polls said that they are ready to reduce, decrease the use of plastic or increase its recyclability, switch to bioplastics. These were the common responses, but there are sometimes differences between declarations and real action. Myth number 5, I think Mrs. Anna already referred to it, about change in consumer behavior. She made a strong plea, please change. We cannot live anymore with using this amount of resources. And we believe that this research showed that consumers are ready to change, but consumers, they need support. They need support from businesses. So good that you are producing these machines to to help with the collection, with the bottle. How are they called, this bottle? So if this infrastructure is in place, then the consumer is encouraged. The consumer is also very likes more and more comfort. Yes? So needs to be presented or offered some solutions. And naturally, in order to introduce some solutions, some system, there's a need for strong regulations. I've heard during the previous session there was some talk about the need of regulation. I think what is missing with this strong, especially if we compare to this ambitious, strong agenda at the EU level, then what's missing is the national regulations and some improvements at the regional level. People change, so this myth number 6 is similar to the previous one. We discovered that if repairing things will cost 30% of the price of new equipment, that the consumers will be ready to repair. Poland stands as a laggard on this front of circularity. So as a myth, I think we have a good potential to improve on this front. In the survey, Polish consumers are even more eager to change than the European peers. This agenda is not only European, because there are many examples worldwide that the circular economy is the future, is the destination. Thank you.
Dzień dobry Państwu. Moja prezentacja będzie po polsku. Tym razem, także witam Państwa przed ekranami. Witam Państwa w studiu, tutaj z moimi poprzednikami. Mam nadzieję,
I can welcome everyone both here and in the online format. My presentation is plastics, one of the crucial elements of the circular economy. I represent an association of plastics producers, and I will try to convey some facts in the course of my presentation. I'm happy that it is in the facts and myths panel, because I want to focus on a few myths and facts about plastics. We've heard so much about that already, and I hope you will learn something from my presentation. In the circular economy concept, plastics were specified as one of the 5 key elements for the success of the transition. We are talking about plastics not just in the context of waste, but as material which has an important role to play. The need to extend the initial concept of the circular economy was Strategy for Plastics, which was announced in January 2018, where there were some concrete actions which were posited, which are the guidelines not just for the industry but for everyone, so that circular economy in terms of plastics can be realized. It was suggested that by 2025 we have 10 million plastics from recycling. Also, there should be increased recycle ratio. New aims were specified, and by 2025, plastics recycling should be 50%, and by 2030, 55%. These are very ambitious targets. In order to achieve them, we should start eco-designing. We've heard discussions about eco-design around noon, and I hope you've been able to listen to that, so let me not repeat the arguments which were already mentioned. We have also heard about the waste of plastics and the concepts contained in the SUP directive, which is already in place. What we also heard about was the fact that plastics waste, non-recyclable waste, might be taxed, and this is already happening or will happen very soon. But what was also noted was that there is a need for concrete investments. The strategy for plastics, we heard about 100 million euros until 2020, and the year 2020 is already here, but I don't think that this has been achieved. The plastics sector responded in a concrete way to the three basic concerns formulated in the strategy. The first one is that plastics are mainly based on the fossil resources. We responded that the resources should be more efficient, so we should produce in a way where the resources are saved throughout the whole life cycle. The industry has been working on alternative sources for products. One of them is, for instance, a waste product which can be recycled in the chemical process, and we heard about that at the beginning of this session. And we also keep talking that the whole life cycle of a material should be taken into account, not just the last waste stage, which we also heard about here quite a lot. We need to take into account the whole life cycle. The other concern which was raised vis-à-vis plastics is a low level of recyclability and repeated use, and that concern is true. Yes, obviously we should use more recyclability, we should use goods more. The waste management system. Yes, I am going at a speed, and interpreters are prompting me to slow down slightly. We must take into account that in different European countries the system looks differently, and in some countries a lot should be invested in order to arrange a new waste management system, and we should again keep in mind the life cycle of the materials and look at solutions which will take into account the benefits and also the economic situation. And obviously another problem is the pollution, the waste pollution, the plastic waste pollution specifically. We respond to that the system of waste management is key. Plastics are the kind of material which is wonderfully recyclable, because it's not just mechanical recycling, but we also have materials recycling. We can reuse the raw material in other waste recovery or recyclability. When we have the kind of waste which is very difficult to recycle, we can then regain its energy from heat installations or electricity production. So we should not dump plastics waste. Unfortunately, in Europe, on average, 30% of plastics end up at a landfill site. In Poland, even more than that. Education and promotion and dissemination of good practice is very important. The plastics sector has announced a strategy and made some declarations. For instance, we take part in eco-design processes, we take part in initiatives like the Global Plastics Alliance and other initiatives, both at regional and European levels, where the plastics industry wants to respond to the strategy and wants to contribute to the move towards the circular economy. We must also remember that plastics play a role, and this role is fulfilled very well in the recycling processes in circular economy. In this graph, you can see the real picture, which already functions. After production, we have the use stage, and we must remember that it is at the use stage where we glean a lot of benefits for economic use of resources, which is at the key, at the heart of circular economy. By using proper plastics, for instance, light packaging or light car parts or light or proper isolation of buildings, we can obtain very concrete benefits for the environment by decreasing the CO2 emissions, by decreasing the use of fuel, and when the cars are lighter because they're made of lighter components. And that is the share of plastics, which is very important in the whole concept of circular economy. And finally, the management of waste, another stage where technologies play an important role. And one technology is such where the plastics waste can provide a raw material for another level of production by reclaiming the base chemicals from the plastic waste. Innovations play an important role in all that. The innovations bring us closer to our goal. Plastics is not one type of material. It's not like glass or metal. We are talking about very different polymers with very different properties. And we can, in a very precise way, plan the life cycle of a product, and the components will be fitting to the use that is required. So we must take into account the whole picture and have a holistic view at the process, not just the horrible sight of the plastic bag hanging on a tree or the piece of plastic which is in the sea. And we know that the plastic in the sea should not be there, and we feel responsible that it's there. Have we considered any alternative for plastics? No, there is no alternative for plastic packaging if we take into account all the benefits for the environment. The emissions, for instance, if we look at the climate impact and the CO2 role, the part that we use when producing, we regain by using plastic packaging or other plastic packages. To show you concrete figures, this is something that has not changed. If we were to replace plastics with alternative products, we would have to increase 3 times the weight of the products, which would translate into detriments to the environment by, for instance, more heavy transport use. And so there are 2 aims that should be combined. The protection of our climate, that is one thing. We believe that plastics can contribute to the protection of the climate, and secondly, the degradation of the seas and the protection from that. And we realize that plastics end up in the sea, and we therefore have to do all we can to prevent it. To conclude, we have heard a lot about the elements that I mentioned, but what is crucial is the life cycle assessment. When we take into account the whole of the life cycle, plastics can have a very beneficial role. That's one thing. The other thing is that what is crucial for circular economy is multi-use. We must find the kinds of applications where the multi-use will be beneficial to everyone. Increased recycling, that's what I mentioned already, and the education of consumers. Anna Sapota in her first presentation mentioned to us how consumers approach the problem. They often say, yes, we are ready, but when they realize that they have to give up something that is very convenient, or that they will have to pay more for something, means that the change of the concept, the change of the model is crucial, and the consumer must be aware that they will need to change their lifestyles and the consumption models. We always keep saying use as much as you need. You don't need to get new things all the time. Finally, in the last slide, I wanted to point to 4 main challenges that we have in the long-term perspective. Health and food, that's the first column. We must provide food for a lot of people. The second column is energy and climate. We must ensure that the impact on the climate is the least harmful. The third column is construction, which is very high in energy use, and again fossil fuels. We want to achieve zero emission construction industries, and the fourth column is transport, savings in that field. If all the plastics were replaced with other types of packaging, there would be a double level of transport to ensure transportation. So this is another element of the beneficial role played by plastics. Thank you.